If you go back a few weeks on our channel, my son Leo did a great video on the Capture the Flag game that we hosted over here. And coming from that, we wanted to build some picnic tables to help entertain people. So I put this one together as quickly and cheaply as I could out of mostly cull lumber, which is just junk lumber from the hardware store that they cut into 4-foot usable lengths. And so the entire tabletop here is done in that. The legs are done in it. The only thing that came from the mill were the seats going around, and I had a couple old 2x4s here. So I'll walk you through now the process of how I put this thing together. This is always hard without clamps to put together initially, but I'm going to start with this corner here, try to line everything up. Already I can see there's a twist in this first piece. I have to try to pull that in as I nail it together. Okay, so we have our square frame put together for our tabletop, and we've used 4-inch galvanized spikes to put this together. I leave them always sticking out a little bit in case I decide to undo something later that I've screwed up on. Now, ordinarily the right way to reinforce a square like this would likely be diagonally from corner to corner with our next piece, like this here. But I don't want to do that because it's going to interfere somewhat with the design idea that I have in mind. So I'm going to turn it this way. We'll put a mark at 24 inches here. A mark at 24 inches here. Should be 48 from here to here. Our tabletop frame is together. So far, 5 pieces of 2x4 at $2 a piece. We're in $10 for this. Next I have woolmanized deck boards. I was lucky enough to pick these up as well, $2 a piece. And we're just going to lay these out in place. And then we'll get something for a spacer to do this properly. For the deck boards along the top, we've used 14 times by $2 each is $28 more, and another 10 for the frame underneath is now $38, and we're probably going to use, I don't know, another $4 in screws or something. So we're in maybe $42 so far, and we're going to use 1.5-inch deck screws to hold this together. I always recommend you buy this stuff in bulk. You save a lot of money generally doing so, and you will use them up if you're doing projects like this. As a little trick to even up all my ends over here on one side, I'm just going to temporarily nail a piece of strapping on here. Now each of these pieces will butt up against this, and I just have to get the spacing correct going this way and lined up on this side over here. Now, because we're going to put 2 screws in each spot here, by the time we're done running against both edges in the middle, it'll shore this up to be pretty stiff frame. Now, to get my spacing right between each board, I'm just going to use my speed square. I'm going to show a little trick with the speed square when you want to cut angles. Right here on the square it says pivot, so we're going to use this corner of our 2x6 as our pivot point, and we want to cut a 60-degree angle on this piece of wood. You know, a perfect corner is 90 degrees, then we have 80, 70, 60, 50. So if we pivot this way with our square to where the 60 lines up with the edge, and this here lines up with the corner, then we can cut the angle that we want for the legs on our table. This is the first cut we have to do, and we have to get our angle here on our table leg. You son of a... There's 30 inches. And now we have to pivot this to 60 degrees here, lined up with the corner there, and that's the cut we need to make. That's our first lag. Okay, to this point, everything we've used has been $2 pieces of cull lumber, all 4-foot lengths. The only cuts we've had to do were for the legs, and that would be 2 cuts per piece, so 8 cuts in all. And now this piece is what's going to fasten the legs onto the tabletop when we get this to where we want to assemble it. Right now, though, I want to design this that it's modular, I guess, so the legs are going to be separate from the table, and then I can transport it over to where I want to take it. Now, because this here is 4 feet long, this here piece should also be 4 feet and fit right in here. And there it is. That's going to wedge in there. And now we're going to peg this board here to our leg. For this, I have 2.5-inch deck screws. We put our square here on the bottom of our leg, and we're going to measure up 17 inches. This piece here gives our table legs some stability. I would have preferred to use 2x6 running across here, but I just didn't have it. So I've got this kind of junky piece of 2x4 doing the job. Now this should lift right out of place. Oh, there's one of our 2 legs. We'll say $15 each is $30, and I think we are up over $40 for this. So we'll say around $75 in materials so far. We still have to do the seating for the benches. Next, I want to figure out what distance I need from here to here in order for someone to sit comfortably on this bench. I have this bench and this bench here positioned at equal distance out from the table legs. The distance across here to here is 84 inches. So I've cut this board here, and this will go on and attach to the table legs, and so it helps hold the table legs together as well as support the ends of the table. These 2 benches now cut and in place, I can figure out the length of my bench on these sides. 74 3/4. My monstrosity of a design here is finished. I think for some lateral support, if that's what it's called, I've got 4 of these blocks left over from where I cut the legs, and I'm just going to put these in when everything's all set up and fasten it on to this center beam here. and that should keep the table from going this way, and there's no worries about it going the opposite direction. Oh, it's time to disassemble this and reassemble it over where we're going to keep it permanently. Here we have our picnic table disassembled, and there's our 4 seats, our tabletop, 2 pieces that run underneath the seats for support, middle piece that runs between the 2 legs, and lateral supports that we're going to put on last. One more screw is needed out on each end just to hold this little piece in. I'm going to put 2 on each side, 4 of these here to shore this up that it won't move in that direction. Here's a very simple support using the leftover end of my table leg. The end seats here are optional, but if you want easier access to the table, you could just unscrew that. I don't show these projects because I'm any kind of great carpenter. This is the first picnic table I've ever put together. We built this with about $100 in materials, and I think there were 18 cuts to do the entire project, where most of it was out of this 4-foot cull lumber that was already cut for me. In hindsight, if I find a picnic table used for $100, I think I'd sooner go buy one than go through the process of building this. This should serve us well over here. It's got seating for anywhere from 8 to 12 people. And we're going to keep improving the place for our next Capture the Flag game coming up in September.